Dear Laddie.
Peace and blessings. Let me know if you can hear me clearly. How y'all doing tonight? Just let me know. I know I had to let YouTube signal go out. Okay, cool. Anybody on Facebook? Are y'all able to hear me? Just let me know. Let me know. Let me know. So we're going to get into this. Yes. Okay. So I think we're good. We got anybody on the Facebook, just let me know that you're good and we can move forward. It's kind of want to tap in. All right. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get into this. So like everyone says they can hear me. I think we're good. Yeah, apologize. I understood the text went out and said 9:30 when actually it should have said 10:30. So I apologize for that miscommunication. But we're here right now, so we'll go ahead and get into this. And we'll go ahead and finish on what we did earlier this week. We'll kind of, I should say, revisit the couple that we was kind of diving into. Was doing their SoulNergy, reading from the Living Soul profile, soul guidance system. It's a form of a numerology system. And basically what it does is it shows us the math behind our relationships. It shows us the math behind our emotional alignment. It shows us the math behind how our ego and ambitions wants to display itself. It shows us the math behind where we are trying to find a sense of balance and stability at. And it shows us the math in terms of how we're moving just in the whole persona, the whole being, and the state of consciousness of who we are. And so it captures all of that. And all those things I just listed is what we identify as the elements that make up our soul matrix. So the Living Soul numerology system is a soul guidance system that helps us to identify us, how we move, how we interact with others, understand energy positions, and so forth. And the beautiful thing about it is it kind of gives us the math. So there's a precision behind really all of this. So the readings are not based upon, opinions and things like that. I'm just breaking down, of course, from my understanding and my sense of being able to deliver a commentary based off of what the numbers are showing, and then intuitively kind of trying to tap into and connect it with each person, in this case, that are anonymous, that we're doing the reading on. Okay, so tonight, we're going to kind of revisit, because there was so much to unpack with this beautiful couple, and we brought out some significant things earlier this week. And so what I want to do is kind of revisit that, but advance it and further it. And I want to focus in on around the silent forces against the flow. Earlier this week, we talked about the nuances against their flow. And I want to talk about the silent forces against the flow, because the reality is when we have relationships and we develop relationships, we can have these silent forces, right? We can have these nemesis that exist that comes from the combination of everyone coming in into a relationship. The nemesis can come in from each individual in terms of their energy field, what kind of plagues them, right? And then when they come into the relationship, that kind of can just surface in and out. No one's really exempt from that. The thing is can we identify it? Can we recognize it when we start to see it, try to wedge its influence? And then once we recognize it, how do we troubleshoot through it? How do we deal with it? And how do we annihilate it before it becomes fully manifested? And so, especially these nemesis definitely showcase themselves, right? When our relationship seems to become very questionable, when we become at odds with each other, when the motives start to kind of not to be centered, when ideas start to become splintered, etc. So that's why I feel tonight is important to tap in. So feel free to kind of share this, to kind of get it out there. I know it's a miscommunication on my part. I apologize. That's nice. And feel free to hop in the chat. Let's just chop it up. We got grown focus on tonight. Appreciate everybody being on. As you know, my name is Satori Seals, and I'm doing the Living Soul Profile Report. You know, I'm a wisdom coach, a wisdom life consultant, energy worker. You know, I travel nationally around the country, just serving people with the energy body work. I'm an iridologist, I'm an author, you know, poet, and there's other different things you want to attach to the resume. And one of the things is that I've been involved doing is um, empowering relationships. I'm not one of those traditional people to try to instigate the conflicts in the genders to continue to divide the opposition. I am someone that's trying to instigate the love, the forgiveness, and the truth, and the reality of who we are in the situations and relationships, and try to bring us together and figure out how to discover the interplay that we all share. Okay. And so, in that, one of the tools that I use is the Living Soul system, and it has a wide range with it. And so, and you're seeing what I'm doing and have been doing in these episodes is utilizing this system to help us be able to get into things about ourselves, about our relationships, etc. So here we go. So just for a base point to revisit, the two soul numbers that will be, I'm sorry, the two individuals' soul numbers that we'll be tapping into. So the sister, her numbers are 3565, 3565, 3565. If you're kind of taking notes or if you're recapping back what we did earlier this week, 3565. And then also the brother, his numbers are 1135, 1135. I'm going to go back on in detail on that because we had a whole episode really covering that. We talk about the nuances, so you can kind of look at that to get caught up. What we want to do is kind of piggy off of that, of course, and let's go ahead and bring some other different things to help ourselves, to help bring some enlightenment, and also just some understanding. Okay. Again, she's 3565 and he's 1135. And last time, as we got to the dialogue, it seemed like I kind of shifted and kind of tapped into a lot of the different nuances and some of the shadows that was coming from, you know, the brother. I kind of visit some of it with the sister, but we really centered a lot with the brother simply because we'll begin to identify some of the questions. So I was going with the flow, but one of the things is it was just strong in his soul alignment to kind of tap into that. And so I like to, what I call that as the soul state. So the soul state is the state of us, right? I always use the reference like, you know, we see people and it seems like they're always just always jarred within themselves. It's like they're kind of not always, it's like they struggle to find that even kill within themselves, or some people might seem like very high strung, some people might seem like very low, some people go on these different lows and highs. And then you got some people who are just kind of just, you know, they're just steady. They know they know the gear that they're supposed to be in life, and they just stay in that gear. Some people might be in gear 2, some might be in gear 8, some might be in gear 5. But whatever gear that is, they work with it and they are steady in it. When they start fluctuating too much from that gear, whatever it is, then that lets us realize to pinpoint there might be some factors in their soul alignment, in their soul matrix, that can explain that, right? And the explanation you could see, like, are all your 4 different numbers that we're looking at based on your soul matrix, looking at your soul steady state, do they all harmonize or are they all productive with each other? Okay, let me know if that makes sense. Then we also begin to look at and ask are all these 4 numbers, are they in conflict, or they're imbalanced, or they're in, with each other? And so ideally, what begins to happen in the living soul system, when we begin to identify that there are conflicts and imbalances, then we know there increases the probability for the shadows to exist on top of the alignment and et cetera, on top of the elemental influence, all the different other factors that are layered inside the system. So it kind of just gives us a pinpoint, like, okay, this is who this person is, right, in range. But then we began to see the tap in, like, oh, okay, but within this person, these type of qualities, these traits, probably jump out more than they should based off of the imbalance that's influencing inside their soul state. Are they in a steady state? Or are they in a fluctuated state? Okay, and so the brother we identify had more of a fluctuating state within his, within his soul state. It's common with anybody, So, and what we identified was his 1135. We knew that his emotional. We talked about last time that this brother is has a lot of emotional alignment within his soul matrix. He has 2 feminine submissives. He also has an androgynous placement, and there's androgynous submissive. And then also he operates as a living soul as a 5, and that's an androgynous neutral. So you got 2 androgynous placements and 2 feminine placements with him. And so as we recognize, as I brought on the last episode, there's no masculine energy and there's no dominant position in this brother's soul matrix. So now we look at the sister in hers 3565, and we look at her steady state, and she does show one aspect where there can be some fluctuation at. And so I want to hit on that tonight, and then begin to go into some of the nemesis, or I should say the silent forces that they need to be aware of, and kind of can help maybe shed some light, insight to recognize it so they can overcome and move past it and strengthen the relationship. Okay. At this point, let me know in the everyone's watching, let me know in the comments if everything is clear up to this point. Okay. All right. So within her lineup, we have, again, her numbers are 3565. All right. And what we show in her numbers within her soul matrix is that her 6 is showing, thanks Nurse Nikki. Her 6 is showing to be in a intention with her emotional makeup under the 3. Okay. And so what this allows us to understand that the emotional placement was very similar with both of these individuals, is that they both show that they have some occurrences in the emotional makeup of both of themselves, and when combined together, it begins to create an emotionally driven possible conflicts that come up. But understand they have a lot of great qualities that surrounds their relationship for them to have a somewhat of an easy flow. And the reason why I say that is because it centers around what's unique about this couple, and bring all their stuff together and combine it, you start to realize they have a strong androgynous placement as a couple, as a and so in that there's a sense of desire to have a flow just based off of the energetic alignment of who they really are. But of course, we can allow different things to disrupt that, or there's nuances. In this case, I'm talking about maybe some silent forces that can be at play that may challenge, right, or may be possible disruptors of that flow that exists. Okay, and so we're going to look at her, because once we understand, togetherness is only a result of separateness. So when we talk about relationships, we try to keep it simple. The togetherness is a result of the separateness, and separateness leads to togetherness. So there can't be no true togetherness in a healthy, steady state if there is not a sense of individuality that the person's able to be comfortable in. Now I talk about the relationship pentagon. I won't go into that in night, but that's, I mean, tonight. But one of the points inside the relationship pentagon, and that's another coaching model that I use in relationships, is that we look at individuality. If we think about it, a lot of us are very mature. A lot of times we don't really talk a lot about it, but we hear people say it, right? We don't talk about it, but we hear people say it. And a lot of times we hear when people get in relationships, they be like, I compromised myself, I lost my way, et cetera, et cetera. And what they really are saying is that my individuality was not embraced or compromised, and so they felt, or whatever. So individuality is very important. Individuality is one of the key points for functionality of a relationship. So I talk about the relationship pentagon. We're looking at the 5 key different points to keep the functionality in the relationship, to increase the chances of that, or decrease the probability of that. And so individuality is one of those things. Another point inside the relationship pentagon is mirroring. Okay. And so kind of tonight and kind of the other, a couple nights ago, as I talked to the lady, we started pointing out, bringing some things that might be mirroring, or might be that is being projected into the relationship. And so that's what we're kind of doing right now. So we identify some of these soul archetypes that I mentioned, that I'm talking about with the numbers. These are what are emanating. These are energy, these are forces, these are characteristics that are emanating inside the relationship. And also these are things that are being projected. And then when we combine the interaction and we factor in the gravity of everything operating together, then we start to see what is being projected as well. And then from that projection, what is the response, right? What's the behavioral response? What's the ego response? What is it creating in the dynamic to create or to shift people in something, or to draw them even more close together? And so those are all the different, different factors that goes on in a relationship continually, right? And so in the continuity, we begin to respond in all these different things that's going on. And some of our makeup, when we come together, is an easier interplay. Then some, there's a little more challenge, right? There's more resistance, more you got to work through. There's more you got to recognize that you're mirroring to each other. There's more that we got to tap into. There's more things we got to unpack. And so typically when we see those type of relationships, we start to see more restraint being created, because they probably lack the awareness of the silent forces. They might lack the awareness of the nemesis that continue to plague them individually as separate individuals, and then the nemesis that creates them being together as a couple, or whatever the dynamic relationship, that structure that they're operating in. Okay, it still all applies, whether it's 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, 5 to 20 people. At the end of the day, is they're all still there. Okay, because we all carry an energy field about ourselves, and we all attract certain things. We all have certain things that just nag at us energetically, that can, if they're not aware, or they could be stimulated to the point where it comes into the relationship. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm drinking this herbal tea, and I have some leaves in my. Okay. Oh, thanks, Latin. Yes, you can look in the comments and see that she has the couples numbers in there. Appreciate that. Okay. So I know I said a lot right there, but I just want to build. So we can get back to the sister. The sister is 3565. And I said that we see some activity going into her emotional makeup of her, what's going on with her. And so what begins to happen is the 6 will be known as the soul seer, and the 3 is known as the soul promoter. And so there is some tension inside herself. We're not talking about her having tension with her mate. We're talking about just her right now. And this was kind of going on, with her. So she has a desire for recluse. Okay, so what's interesting is that her 6, when she wants stability, when she wants to feel supported, when she wants to just have that sense of comfort, she's going to come from the space of her 6. Okay, and so there's one part I'm gonna mention this because a lot of people, because it's interesting nowadays, a lot of people get kind of bothered that people have this need for recluse. And I want to say it just like that. Some of us within our soul makeup, we have a strong need for recluse. Now, if you remember the last episode, I kind of mentioned how that can create a possible imbalance in the relationship because, especially because his emotional makeup is a 1. And so that begins to create an imbalance when you begin to combine the math with the 6 and the 1, and it creates an imbalance. And one of the things can be is that from his aspect, he can take it very personal, or he can interpret it something different from an emotional space of when she wants to go into this desire or position herself in a state of recluse. Okay. And so that can, in this relationship, that probably can be something that really bothers, especially because his emotional archetype and also the 1 is very strong in his soul matrix. So this is probably a strong response, probably when she goes into this mode, right? The 6 also knows how to be able to detach when it's in a healthy state. Okay. So there's aspects and the things that exude from the 6 that some people that are led with different archetypes may be bothered by. But now that shift back into her within inside herself. So within inside herself, there's a part of her, okay, the soul promoter, it's an expressive soul archetype. It's an androgynous archetype, it's an androgynous submissive archetype, and her 6 is an androgynous dominant. Okay. And so in this combination, we got one part. So picture one part of her emotional well-being is it wants to assert itself. Then we got another part that wants to be more in a supportive, complementary type of role or expression. And so in that, it can create a tension within inside herself. So sometimes she might feel like her voice is clipped, or she might want to say this, or no, she might feel like she's tired, right? Even though she's expressive, but when there's a reclusiveness about her, and there's a sense of maybe just to dial back and to detach for various different things, if she feels like she has to become more vocal, it begins to become a tension for her now, even though she likes to be vocal. Right? So it's like, wow, so this is the nuance within inside herself. Normally, probably her normal behavior, she's probably, easily be able to communicate, communicative, and so forth. She's intellectual, she's adaptive, she can hold conversation, she's got all that. But then emotionally, when she's within herself, there's time when she just don't want to talk. She don't want to say shit. And within herself, that become bothersome, because then that might become switched into a miscommunication. So where one of her strong suits probably is being communicative, but then there's a part of her when she shifts into that mode when she wants to kind of dial back, and she wants to be real brief and not really say a lot. It could come across a miscommunication to others that don't understand this dynamic of her. So it can create a nuance, right, in their relationship. Also within her, there's a strong sense of independence, not in a rebellious way, but it's just a part of who she is. Okay. And so her living soul, if you remember last episode, her and her mate share in the same living soul number as a 5, as a soul liberator. Okay. And so the soul liberator and the 6, is it value and it needs a sense of independence that connects to us talking about a little bit earlier about individuality. Okay. And so in her six, okay, and when you look at it in reference to with the three, as I've been talking about, another thing that might go on inside her is that sense of independence can possibly get in the way of her interdependence. And then this in the relationship probably becomes a response that creates some clashing. Okay, because her normal vibe and her normal demeanor when she's undisturbed. That's what I bring out. One thing is that she is really cool when she's undisturbed. Unfortunately, we look at his soul profile. When he goes in these different bouts of these emotional waves and shifts that I talked about, and actually this sister confirmed that he actually does go through that after the first episode. So, and of course, I didn't know about that until she let me know and confirmed that. So I feel like I can say that. So when that begins to happen, it's going to, I hope she's paying attention. I think she's on, but that this probably disturbs her, which then kind of can shift her emotionally. Let me know if this is all making sense, that y'all are following me. That it can shift her emotionally. And this is going on from her 6 to 3. Now I'm talking about how it can be felt from him, which his emotional position is already in a state of imbalance with her 6. So her 6 to her 3 personally creates this feeling. She has this sense of independence, but it seems like it clashes with her desire to feel interdependence, or interdependence clashes with her sense of independence, I should say. And so when it feels like when she's being cooperative and it jeopardizes her independence, as she might feel, because it's all from an emotional space, then it begins to create a situation between them. So I'm gonna say it again. When her ability, one thing about the 6 are very cooperative. They that energy, that soul archetype oversees interdependence. Okay. So in that interdependence, that collectiveness, that cooperation, but when she has a desire, she has that need to feel independent, which is very strong. If it feels like it's compromising the independence, then of course that creates a combustion, right? And then it's going to roll into a response into her lover. And because the math behind them is already aligned to have an imbalance from those influences, it begins to create, probably some silent forces that they now have to deal with. So hopefully this right here helps them be able to see. What I'm trying to do is bring out some things to make it traceable, so that way they can begin to learn how to mitigate through some of this stuff. Okay. So that jumps out from her. Now, what's very interesting when we start to look at the elemental influence of them, and I won't go too much into that, but she has a lot of air, okay, in her elements. And because it's a strong presence of that, she can come across being very indecisive, right? Or could be prone to overthinking. All right. Now, in the same thing with him, we show that he can become, he has a lot of fire. And so he become probably very restless and so forth with that. And of course, there's a lot of emotional. So there's a lot of water. So, and it's funny, he could become very indecisive. So I don't know if they really want to admit this or not, but if they both feel not at ease with each other, they both can become very indecisive. So it's almost like they have this aspect in a healthy state where they complement each other very well. There's a good flow, but because they lack assertiveness, in their dynamic, they're over accommodating each other, then depending on how they're feeling, it might can shift moods into morale. And then when they get into that space, they become both very indecisive. They're both are prone to that. So what that leads me to realize is that another nuance that they probably have, well, not I won't say a nuance, scratch that, I'll say a silent force that they got to deal with is assumption. They probably deal with, they're not in that, they should not be in an assumptive state and when they're feeling undisturbed. When they get in a disturbed state, they are prone to be very assumptive of each other. Now, the thing about it is, as I mentioned, there is a strong connection in their soul profiles that points our attention to their emotional makeup. A lot of their conflicts that going on in their relationship seem like it's being sparked from the emotional positioning. And so from that, if we all think about it, if someone's coming from an emotional space and you're assuming, now we got to look at, well, how accurate. We're not displacing the feeling, we're acknowledging the feelings, but in the feeling, in the assumption, what is it based upon? And so when that's happening, then we got to look at it and be like, okay, where is the earth position? Where's the earth influence in this to give some type of support for the emotional assumption? So this is where, and revisit them, and this is deep because her 6 is under the earth alignment, but his 3 is under the earth alignment. So there's another sense of tension. So what I'm pointing out is, based off of the math between them, is this becomes a very strong nemesis, a very strong silent force, because even they try to default when it gets into this assumptive space, it might take a long time to work through it because their earth position is not really in a strong position to balance it out. So if they get into this space, it can just move in a whole nother direction before they rotate back to a state of balance. Now, it's interesting, in both of them, they share in the 5. So in this, if they go into this wave or into this potential cycle, in their makeup, they should circle back fairly easily back to their 5. So I would assume, this is me saying this, I would assume based off of the numbers, when they do get into that space, they don't stay there a very long time. The question that I do have is, when I'm looking at some of the numbers, is that what are you harboring? So that also shows up in the silent forces of their stuff. Wait, what's good, Tavia? In their silent force. So you look at it, oh, you got this going on, you go into this assumptive space, y'all can, rotate and get back to the state of balance and also to a state of truth. Their 5 houses the truth. So they do have an aspect to self-regulate. That's a great thing. It's a great thing for the flow. And some of you know that's been rocking with me, especially on the coaching side of thing over the years. I talk about the love triangle. And one of the points in the love triangle is the truth. Okay. And so in the androgynous position that they hold, it definitely is centered around the soul liberator oversees the truth, not the human truth. So when everybody say my truth, then I'm talking about the truth that has more of a timeless knowledge, a timeless insight, that's universal, apply, and also revealing the truth, right? And so they do have this ability, and they should, if they don't resort to that, it shouldn't be hard for them because it's a natural generator inside them to get to that. The problem is they're highly and easily prone to go into assumptive binges. I'll say it like that. This couple has a potential to go into strong assumptive binges. And if they go on those assumptive binges, of course, like y'all know, it can just shift anyway because we start to interpret things. And again, remember I said, When they go into the space, they don't have a quick default. I mean, they don't have a, let me say a quick, they don't have the strong regulator that they need in their earth position. As a living soul, they do. So when they start to circle back around, once they, they go, they got this going on, they kind of can get back and level back out. So this is what makes them uniquely to keep them together. They have that ability because of the adaptability that they both share in their elements and also in their soul archetypes. That's really at play. The problem is that there is probably some residue that translate as harboring ill will, harboring some disappointments, harboring, y'all know how it goes. You got all these different things kind of going on. And so now you start to house it. And if you're not aware, okay, if you're not aware, then it becomes something that's just lodged in there. And when certain situations comes up, it keeps coming up. Okay. And so that's one of the things right there. And this is the other point I want to point out. When I talk about the love triangle, the other point is forgiveness. And so this is where the forgiveness piece comes into play when they start to get into assumptive space and so forth. So depending on how fast they can shift into a forgiveness space, the more they can kind of keep that balance and not let the waves, the assumptive wage or the assumptive binges get out of hand. They really got to make sure and pay attention to. So sister, if you're paying attention, really notate this right here, is to pay attention to your assumptive binges that you might go on when you are in a disruptive state. Okay. Y'all both can go there. One might be more extreme than the other, but the end of the day is, as I talk about the relationship Pentagon aspect, there is a mirroring factor in one of those points. And this is where y'all probably share in a mirroring of each other right here, is that y'all both can just shift into a very assumptive space. And let me tell you something, sixes out there, sixes can just go there easily anyways if they're flustered or if they're definitely operating in shadows. Again, for people that's kind of chiming in, there's no one archetype that's more superior than the other. We all got these different archetypes. We all have different shadows or tendencies that will just, come forward. Okay. So right now we're just centering on these. Okay. And so again, I want to clarify this because some people traditionally always use the term, which is actually, I don't like saying that term. It actually bothers me. We talk about relationships, we talk about compromise, and it's not really about that. It's about interplay. And I think, if we start to discover how to interplay these qualities when they're being projected into the relationship, then we start to focus more on, because when you say compromise, I mean someone's got to lose a part of themselves, that someone is gaining something at your expense. So if you think about that, then guess what? Now I got something against you in the long haul because I've been compromising. So if you're someone that's constantly been feeling compromised in the scenario, or the other person feel like that you have been compromising, now you got all this defensiveness going on and all this calculation. And now you start making love a record. You start recording wrongs. That's another silent force in this relationship that can happen. They can start recording, especially her in her six. She can start to, she's getting these things where she's recording wrongs, okay, of what did not happen, when did not happen, and how did it happen. And she can break it down because the six is very intelligent. The six is very precise and organized, and it can get analytical, and it can break everything down in detail if you take it there. And so in her case is she can just got a memory, and if she got to, she could play it on replay. Bah, 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 bah. Okay. And so this can be a factor. So recording wrongs is another silent force, good memory. Yeah, the six, the six is moved by the intuitive aspect of ourselves. It's operates in the spiritual part of ourselves, the inspirational part. So it's a very unique archetype. Look, so say easy on the sixes. as I'm doing this, I can feel it like, I said, hold on, I know there's some sixes on here because I'm feeling the forces. See, that's another thing about the sixes. They, say you can feel when they trying to, I ain't trying to mess with y'all. I'm just trying to bring some understanding. So her and this six, what she got going on, and it's a dominant driven energy position, but yet it's more balanced in how its dominance looks different than the masculine dominance and versus the feminine dominance, the androgynous dominance, but yet they share in a dominance. But so how she exercises that dominance will be, it'll be different, but it is a dominance, and so when she goes into the dominance position and things ain't checking to how she wants it, you know what I'm saying? Then it's going to shift her into the other parts of her archetype, and it can go into the passive aggressiveness, right? And so you mix that with the emotional part of her, it can get real nasty. Assumptions, passive aggressiveness. Now she's manipulating, right? And it could be from the response that she's might be getting from him, right? So these are these silent forces. And I mention these things is that it can come from, we can see her soul matrix, and we can see what can kind of come from her as she becomes disturbed. I want to keep saying disturbed in reference to the six, because the six is not really seeking out conflict or controversy. The six is out seeking out introspection in a healthy state. And a healthy state is seeking out introspection and inspiration. So because her six is in her earth alignment, she feels comfortable in a sense of introspection, inspiration. The domestic vibe is complementary, right? There's a sense of cooperativeness. There's an aspect where if she wants to dial back and be reclusive, she can do that. It's into, higher level, transcendental thinking, is into, spiritual stuff. But it's not flighty. So let me say that. If the six can get flighty if they're in their shadow. Sorry, y'all, but I gotta say it. The six can get very flighty. And because remember, the six is coming from the spiritual center. So the six can get flighty and it can get out there because it's already spiritual. It's already influenced beyond the third dimension. All right. So, but on the good side is because I like to nickname the six is the eyes of God. Well, among all the archetypes, it's the bridge and it's the connection between the whole divine, the whole breath that got us all living on the earth. And it begins to be able to show itself through itself and reflection to itself through the gateway of the six. Now, I'm not gonna go into detail and break all that down. I actually have a book that's gonna come out where I do explain that part with the six, that connection, so we understand. So it's that God consciousness, that breath, that the six is the gateway for that, and it's based off of a whole mathematical alignment and position and so forth. So the six is very important for y'all to make sure you're undisturbed and you're in a healthy state, because y'all inspire. But on the other side of inspiring, you also can make things be dispirited. So you can rob the energy, you can rob the spirit in a certain situation. Y'all are very good at overseeing the morale and understanding the details of the morale and protecting the morale. But at the same time is you also can work against the morale and use people's morale to work against them, because so that's the bad thing. So that's that passive aggressive side where they can sit there and provoke people in a situation to disturb the morale and get them clashing and acting against each other, right? While the six sit back and just operating and looking like it ain't did nothing and nobody ain't reckoning what the six did. Okay. And so in a relationship, if you piss the six off and it's in a relationship, it has its ways to make sure you gonna pay, you know, and it'll have a way to disturb your morale, wherever means that it does. Okay, so that's kind of going on, or it can, you know, it can go on. And I say if it's highly disturbed, it takes a while for the six to go there. It again depends. If they're operating a shadow, then you know you know the timing is different. Everybody's different, but that that quality is there, that can be there. But in their dynamic, it shouldn't be something that's always being conjured up, right? It shouldn't. So if it's constantly being conjured up, then you know I just encourage they got to really sit back and dial back and really look at each other and see what they are to each other and make sure that they're not shifting each other into this bad space, because that's not what it really should be in this relationship with them. They should have a really easy flow. Okay. So you got that right there. So now what's interesting in this couple between them is that based off of the element influence and the archetype influence, they both value stability. But it's funny because there's some tension that can happen with her earth position with his you know, with his 3. All right. And then what's interesting, his 3 can manifest opposition with her 3. So the dynamics of stability is something that y'all really got to figure out. Y'all got to really sit down and just be like, okay, if y'all haven't, you got to figure out what is y'all's recipe, what is y'all's formula to ensure each other is feeling balanced, because there's a lot of silent forces that can be just encircling around y'all's earth archetype. Okay. And I'll get into that. And well, we'll do it right now. And one of the things is encircling both y'all's earth archetype. Oh, this is gonna get good, y'all. Hope y'all taking notes on this one. Is the 9. And the 9 is it's a masculine neutral archetype. The 9 pretty much in the overall, you know, macro view, it moves towards security or conflict. Catch what I said? So you know, as I said, there's just tension in their earth alignment. And then you also said there's also opposition. He has an opposition we can manifest as the polarity. So there could be a lot of extremes. So it's like when they're cool. But then when things are disturbed, there's tension with her. Then all of a sudden you can see these extremes come from his side. So, and it's just revolving around stability. So I did point out there's some, you can see this activity coming from the emotions. Now I'm kind of looking at some things that can challenge some of their stability that's really going on. Okay. But there's some, they share in some common connection between both of them up under the earth as some silent forces that they might need to be aware of. And so we're seeing the 9. Okay. And so the 9, like I said, it can move, it moves, not it can. It moves, it operates from the security and conflict. Okay. And, you know, so in that, if you think about that, they're depending on, so let me say this. This could be an individual, projecting this, security to conflict and all the different things that come with that. This could be a force or like an energy, right? Or an environment that can be created that they might generate or that it might can come. It could be a presence that comes to the relationship. All right. So there's a lot of different things when I mention this. So we'll say between them, because we've been talking a lot about them, what's being generated up to this point. So we're going to make this connect to both of them. What definitely can happen, okay, the 9 is we call it the soul protector. All right. And the title basically expresses what it is. The soul protector oversees force, hard work, task, so forth. But to be kind of brief, the 9 in this case, when I say force, it doesn't have to always be physical. It could be psychic. And because these individuals right here, they have a more of an androgynous dynamic energetically, they can bring about a lot of psychic force against each other. And if they're both not aware of this psychic force against each other, then as y'all all can imagine, now that becomes a nemesis, and it might not be able to be traceable because we're now operating from a telepathic type of thing where we're talking about projection. The volitional aspect of us, in other words, the willpower aspect of us, is housed up under the soul protector. So the willpower of us is the protector. That's the part of the division of the self that it comes from. And so that willpower, it's going to project what? Its power, its will. It's going to try to impose its will. So sometimes it might not be physical force, because it can do that as well too. But we look at all the blend and mix that going on, they more than likely are exercising a psychic force upon each other. So they're trying to impose their will on each other when they go into these assumptive binges. If he's an emotional spiraling thing, or there's a passive aggressive going on. So the psychic force becomes almost a weapon inside the relationship. Okay, let me know if this is making sense. So that could become it can become, a weapon. So they both, whether unconscious of it or not. Now, some people are very conscious of their projective abilities, and that takes to a whole nother level. Now, they probably go into that, but it's more of this. The good thing, at least it's not in their soul matrix lineup, because if they go into that space, it's probably even more stronger. Okay, so people with those 9s, they can go on a different, vibe, like any other archetype. But this one is probably more, we'll be more alarmed by the 9, because the 9 can operate by force. It oversees force. It oversees completion. It oversees tasks. It oversees death. Where the 1 oversees life, oversees growth. It doesn't mean that the 9 doesn't cause growth. The 9, it protects the growth. It's going to safeguard it. It's going to do what it needs to do, right? But because they have a 9, they both share in the 9, especially in their Earth alignment, and also in other alignments. The 9 shows up a lot, and I mean, especially with her. So if you're listening, the 9 shows up a lot on your side, but you also share 9s with him as well. Okay, and so one thing that jumps out, of course, with the 9 is that controlling or domineering aspect, because they start trying to micromanage. One part I will say from her end, especially under the 6 and under the 3, there can be a lot of mistrust, right? And I think I talked in the last episode, there's probably not, from her end, definitely, it's probably not a lot of trust in his ability to stay consistent to make sure things are stable. So, so then she has to operate in her dominant position to make sure that things are happening. So because keep in mind they both don't have masculine energy, but he doesn't have any dominance, but she does have a dominance, but it's not masculine. But she's coming from an androgynous space to exercise that dominance, so you can see her take on the masculine. It's not bothering her, but she keeps going there. She's going to be bothered because emotionally, she might feel like it's taking her out of her cooperativeness. Is now feel like it's being misused, right? And she might feel like she's now being her priorities are being misaligned. And so that can create a response. And so if she gets into that mode, the 9, the energy of the 9, the tendencies that can represent from the 9 begins to come forward. And this is a sense of you want to micromanage, right? And both of you show that y'all can go there, which is funny because both of you, as we talked about last episode, both of you desire a sense of freedom and some personal autonomy. So this begins to kind of just arise up, okay? Also, under the 9, you got to be careful for and be watchful for is becoming impulsive. So when you're disturbed, if things present itself and encourage you to become impulsive, dial back from it. Try to recognize external influence that makes you impulsive, but also recognize the impulsivity inside yourself. All right. And because there's some emotional infusion, I'll say emotional instigation that comes in your dynamic. If you're disturbed, you both show that it can be very impulsive and it can bring a sense of restlessness in each other. So you want to make sure that y'all are protective of each other. So you need to recognize if he's becoming impulsive, and then he needs to recognize when you start becoming impulsive, and both y'all have the 5. So y'all both have an ability to kind of balance that out when you start to recognize it. Don't instigate it. Don't try to prove who's right or wrong. The good thing is that y'all have a neutral position that y'all both share. The power in the neutral piece is that you know how to just mitigate things. Don't jump on the right or left. Let's get in the middle. Let's see it all for what it is. That's not exercise judgment. Let's get to the space right here so we can neutralize what is going on. This what makes y'all be able to have a nice flow is because y'all understand the language of neutrality. But you got to make sure that you're using it. So when you're getting pulled into the silent forces or into the nuances of the relationship combination, you got to make sure that you tap into your ability to make things neutral. That is y'all's superpower. One of the superpowers is better forgiveness, but forgiveness operates from being able to become neutral or to neutralize things. Okay, forgiveness is being able to reshift the power, right? Sometimes when things, so if you're entertaining things outside that can make you impulsive, then you're giving that power. So you got to recognize that, or even inside yourself, there are certain emotions being conjured up inside you. You got to make sure you're not becoming impulsive with that, because remember, y'all both can go on this assumptive binge. So y'all have to make sure that you protect each other. See, a lot of people don't talk about this. A lot of people see this is where, and I'm gonna say this is where you see a lot of these people talk on the relationship level. This is where they step in and they drive the wedge right here, what I'm talking about. They start to create the gender divide, and now you're at each other, and they start creating a lot of content around this stuff right here I'm talking about. So I want you to realize what I'm trying to do is like, oh, no. Yeah, it's there, it's right here. but y'all both have neutral positions. So are you exercising that? And if you're not, what is hindering you to get to that space to make sure you neutralize when things begin to go in these different directions? Because it can and it can happen. All right. So you also want to look at that. Then there's a sabotage tendency that might can come up, and I think that might show up more. So what I'm saying is that if y'all go in these shifts or you go in these clashes you might have going on, y'all both got to make sure that y'all are not sabotaging what you have, and that's a concern because you really have the makeups to have a really good flow, and so you just want to make sure that you don't major in minors, like I always say. It is that y'all's dynamic shouldn't flirt with that and dwell there like that. But because we know there's some emotional spinouts that happens on his side because he has the 2 1s that's showing real strong and they're in conflict, they're in imbalance. I'm sorry, they're they show some imbalance with his 5. We know it's there, but we got to make sure that the emotional imbalances that comes on both y'all's end, it doesn't shift y'all to focus on the minors, because you hate to sit back at hindsight and look at the stuff and be like, well, damn, it really ain't that deep. And so y'all probably have a lot of those aha moments because you do have a strong androgynous influence in your relationship. So y'all probably have this circling back effect where you'd be like, man, I was tripping. It wasn't that deep. But in the heat of it, y'all can get so heated in that. And then my concern is that there's little small branches that comes out of that. And if you don't cut those, if you don't nip it in the bud before it starts to grow, it can become a nemesis to you. And if you got a whole bunch of them, then it's hard to trace where the branches came from and what trunk they connect to. Right? So you don't want a bunch of branches and all of a sudden they're all on the ground, and then, and they say they're like twigs and they get blown over the place. And now you don't know which tree it belongs to. So now you can't put it on the right tree, the right trunk, and get back down to the right roots. So now all of a sudden y'all are floundering, and then you're trying to find resolutions, and it's hard to trace where the issues came from. Right? So that's a big nemesis that can happen, if y'all don't put proper measures in place to make sure that y'all protecting each other. Okay. So just want to hit on that. I'll say this one last point right here with this couple. What's really interesting is what I like is that their elements really, it can work. The stability, it can work. It's just going to highlight some areas of growth that you might have to address in each other. So when there's opposition, we're talking about the polarity. That means the extreme. When we talk about the principle of polarity, one of the tenets to describe that is extremes meet. So when y'all are in the extreme of being angry or an extreme of being in conflict, that's a great place to meet at, because the meeting point, if you look right here, is right there in the middle where my fingers is at. And so the extremes meet, which means depending on which side you're on, you look to the opposite side to find your solution. So y'all can really bring a lot of resolution in any conflict got going on in the stability side by traveling the extremes, seeing where the extreme meets at each other. So where does it meet? And then once you find the meeting point, look at the opposites and then shift to, there's an imbalance going on, and see where the rhythm and the cycles that are supporting some of these things that y'all might be trying to fight through. Identify it. Identify the highs, identify the lows, and identify the median position or the steady state in those things. And you obviously want to be in the steady state of it. And so once you begin to see this, since a lot of people don't see, when we start talking like this, everything, oh, it's too much thinking. No, relationships requires tools. And a lot of us are relating just out of instinct, and we're wondering why, what's going on. So I'm just showing you a way to implement some practices to operate as a tool to kind of help, because in this case right here there's a lot of compromising or a lot of instability that can come in their earth position that will shift them into the 9 operating as a force, which then compromises their security or have them question their security, right? And then it also can invite conflict. Now, anytime there's conflict, and I always tell my clients this, especially when you do shadow work and mirror work, and one of the bases that we understand when we recognize a conflict, that lets us realize there is a incompatibility at the core level. So when we recognize there's conflicts, we quickly begin to try to unpack and get to the core values, core beliefs, the thinking processes, the opinions or whatever, and get to that to see what is driving the conflict, because that's what the conflict sits on. And the conflict generates its strength on that. So this is why I was saying, you got to make sure when it's, in their case, unfortunately, is when they go into this emotional assumptiveness, it's hard for them to draw from their earth, because their earth is in conflict and opposition. So they have to really rely upon their living soul alignment to kind of to quickly get them to a balanced state, because they're not going to be able to draw from the stronger position of the earth. Okay. So that's what we got right there. So I'm saying all that between these individuals is stability is very achievable. It's actually favorable, even though I broke all these things around it. But the interesting thing is how you go about stability. Y'all go about it a little bit differently. And I'm going to bring that out. So with her sense of stability, she's going to try to get to stability more through communication. So she views and needs the sense of stability coming more from a communicative space. So she's going to operate a lot in that air element. But stability to her is going to come from the communicative space. But also she's going to use communication to bring stability. Okay. Now with the brother, same thing. He wants stability, but he's going to go about trying to bring stability through being supportive. So stability to him looks supportive. Stability to her looks communicative. Okay. So you see right there, you could both make that work, but you got to recognize the dynamics that's mirroring from each other. Okay. Now, I know it's going to head off, but I want to talk about what I mentioned there, because they got 2 houses, these energy fields that when they come together, that's really strong. I mentioned a little bit in the last episode, talk about the house 3. And the house 3 is the house of desire. And one of the things the house of desire will do is it's going to bring out what's being repressed. And I think I broke down today all these different things, talking about the silent forces. These are things that can come from the result of the house 3 trying to help you recognize what is being repressed. So it helps you to make sure you're not harboring. I talked a lot about earlier in this episode, I talked about the harboring piece. So that house 3 is trying to make sure that you're not harboring. It's challenging what you are repressing. in yourself and also what y'all creating together. But the other house that's at play is house 5, which is the communication house. But the communication house is influenced by balance and freedom. So there's a sense of freedom that y'all need to have and a sense of balance that y'all both desire, but it's going to come from the communication, exercising that communication. And so there, so that communication piece is going to bring out, it's going to bring out the sense of protection. A lot of people don't associate communication with protection. But if you think about it, to keep things protected, you need communication. Okay? Communication is key to maintain unity. And so the communication house is in place to make sure that you safeguard each other. Communication is there to help y'all build a fortress around y'all's relationship. Okay? And so the protection that y'all need, so the nemesis and the shadow side of the soul protector doesn't have to be the thing that destroys y'all. It can be the thing to encourage y'all to really pull inside that house 5 and use communication as a protection. Use communication to bring stability that she favors, and bring communication to help level off him emotionally. If they do all these different things and kind of use all these different things and take all this feedback and or whatever, they're going to get back. Well, I ain't saying they're out of it. I don't know, but if they, if they got some turbulence going on, they can snap back. All right. This is actually a good relationship. That there's a lot of good things in alignment. Depends on everybody's different tolerance of different things that's going on, but I think with this couple, they just want a sense of understanding of each other, based off of kind of just Miley, when I got back on it, they probably want understanding so that way they can move forward and really grow and grow the healthy aspect of themselves and the relationship together. All right. So that's what's up. That's what's up for this, for this episode. So before I hop off of here, definitely drop your comments. I see what's kind of going on. Everybody been seeming like, I guess everybody's been just quiet, but I see people are on here and connecting. I don't know if you're taking notes or whatever, but I appreciate you being here. If you want to support, first I want to say thanks. This week actually a couple people contributed, so I really appreciated that. If you want to contribute, we're basically, bi-monthly asking everybody that feels moved bi-monthly to contribute, $11. If you're in the soul to soul text community, you'll recognize the text. I mean, the link is in there. I don't know if Latin's on her now. She probably can put the link for that, but if not, that's fine. But there's a link inside the text community. And you can just click that link and you can, become like a member, a supporter. Like supporter of this show. Also, you just feel moved, no matter what, whatever it is, if you just feel moved just to contribute a little bit of something, you can do it through Cash App, $Satori Seals. It'll probably show up and say Wisdom Vibe brand. That's fine. That's me. All right. So $Satori Seals. And I appreciate, end of the day is that for me, I am coaching. All right. I am providing something in this. So anyone that kind of contributes and help out is greatly appreciative. Like anything, if you want something to be around, you have to support it and give it energy, right? And so that's what we're doing. And also, I believe and also be able to show the result when you choose and feel led to contribute. So I think hopefully you see the results of what the values being delivered, for other people and also for yourself. So again, I appreciate everybody being able to support that. Also, we have a whole separate platform in the Wisdom Cloud, where it's a whole nother world. It's a quiet space where we share a lot of different empowering information around wellness, Thai fascia yoga, different things around the living soul, different things. We got private groups. Just to let y'all know, if any brothers are watching right now, and any sisters, of course, if you know any brothers, there is a men's group. The Wise Men Confraternal Collective is going to be officially launched for the brothers, and so be on the lookout for that. Bring him in on that. But and also we have a whole separate space for the soul conversations in the Wisdom Cloud as well too. So, thank you, KP. Oh, thank you, Kim. You're welcome, love. All right. So again, definitely appreciate everybody chiming in. Of course, we're gonna come back at it again. If you're interested in me doing a living soul kind of reading, or if you have a relationship and you want me to kind of do what I just did with this couple, you can send in both of y'all's date of birth, and I'll just break it down, and you're anonymous. All right. Now I will say this: if I'm breaking down certain things, don't take offense to me. I'm just breaking down what the numbers are doing and what I'm getting and so forth. All right. So, but definitely that we got a lot of people submitted their stuff, so there'll be different episodes going over different people's, different stuff. So if anyone wants to share any feedback, please, testimonies and things like. I've been getting some testimonies, so that's very motivating. It's validating. Okay, it's like, oh wow, okay, this has really helped this person out with this and that. So it's good to be able to hear that, right? And know that you're reaching out, because there's so many people being reached out on so many different channels. It's always good to know how people are being affected, by that. All right, so that's what's up. You know what I mean? Appreciate y'all again. Hey, thanks, Brenda. How you doing? Okay. So again, so what we did, I just broke down this couple, and I call it the SoulNergy, report. Is like synergy, but it's SoulNergy. And her numbers, so this whole couple living soul reading that I did came from the 3565, which was hers, and then his was 1135. And so I just kind of broke down the math behind their relationship. And behind all of us, there's a math behind us. How we move, how we act, how we think, how we choose, how we attract, how we repel, right? And there's a math behind how we relate. Okay. And so that's what we're doing. The soul to soul conversations. One thing that we're going to be doing is really bringing forward to let people see and recognize how the math behind a relationship or potential relationship that they're entertaining, or someone they might be interested in, or someone might want. I have a lot of people reach out to figure out what past relationships, why they didn't work, and we begin to dive into the numbers. So when I start, that's falls in line with my soul choice coaching, and that's always really interesting. So there's a wide range that is covered under this in what I do. And I'm going to bring pieces of this out, so hopefully it can benefit a greater whole and a greater larger audience. That's what we're going for. That's why I appreciate everyone's support, because support is going to allow us to be really just kind of independent. So like I said, if you plan on giving through Facebook, stars, please don't do that. Just go to the $ Satori Seals, and just give whatever, even if it's $1 or whatever you choose. Ain't nobody tripping. All right. And if you want to be a supporter and just really, then what we're doing is we're doing like $11 every 2 months to just do what we're trying to do. All right. So that's what's up. Appreciate y'all. Continue to this will be on YouTube, and this will be on the Facebook, on my business page on Facebook, and also my profile page. So you can just put comments and stuff in there, and we'll drop links and things and so forth. And we will be coming back with another episode. So if you're not in the text community to get the alerts, I apologize again today. It said 9:30 and I meant 10:30, but sorry, but I think I redeemed myself with this episode. But if you want to get into that text community, just text 1-833-475-0111 and then type in as one word with a capital S, soul, the number 2, capital S, soul. So soul to soul as one number, and that will plug you in to our Soul to Soul text community and allow you to get updates or little different things that I might be moving, share some things from the living soul perspective or whatever. So this is another reason what your support would it allow us to do is because as you're supporting, it's allowing us to be able to use these other different platforms, okay, to begin to communicate and to grow, to grow things. So I know a lot of people don't think about all that, but I think it's just important for people to know that, because a lot of times is, there's a work involved. So when you support, it's greatly appreciated because it helps with the work. Okay, so appreciate it. Definitely text, and get on that, so that way you can have the alerts, because eventually, after a while, we might have certain episodes where it's just strictly on the Wisdom Cloud, and it won't be on Facebook or on YouTube. Sometimes it might just be in a whole other private space where we'll have a show there. So you definitely want to kind of chime into the text community, because there might be certain episodes where we just choose just to do it over there. Okay, so that's what's up. Appreciate everybody. Love y'all. One love.